let's see if we're going here. And it looks like we're going, so here we go. Hello and welcome. Wanted to come on and do a little stream for a change, and I welcome everybody who has supported me. Thanks so much. Want to apologize that we haven't had more interviews in the last 2 weeks. They are coming up. Don't fret. It doesn't really matter if you miss a week or so, because in the grand scheme of things, as far as the internet and trading and everything, it's all the same. So I missed everybody, so I want to say hi and show my face. As I mentioned to a lot of people, I've been sort of down the last week, as far as not in the sense of like being depressed or something, but just I haven't been able to trade because I've been switching my accounts around. I did switch brokerages, and I wanted to discuss that with you a little bit. A lot of people have asked me. Brokerages is a really, it can be a personal thing, and by that I mean you kind of have to cater what brokerage you use to your specific situation, as far as what you're trading, what sort of money you're using, what other financial arrangements you might have in life, whether it be a 401k for work, I don't know, trust fund, or your family, if your family has money, you have a stockbroker from before or something like that. Everybody has a different situation, but I just wanted to outline some of what I look for in a brokerage and why I switched. So let's start out with the brokerage which I initially was using, and that one was TD Ameritrade, and I'm attempting to pull up TD Ameritrade as I talk to you here. And we'll take a look at it. Let's see. And so here we have the Thinkorswim platform. Let's go take a look at that here. All right, so this is just your basic Thinkorswim platform. And this is what I was using before, and it's a great platform. I highly recommend it. It's got great option stuff. Let's pull up UVXY here for a second. It's got great analytics. It's very straightforward. There's great support from TD Ameritrade, and there's nothing I can really say that's bad about it, besides that it was costing me money as far as commissions. So hold on, I'm doing another little thing here. Let's see, there we go. Just bear with me, I apologize. Okay, there we go, there I am. Alright, so the beauties of doing a live stream. Anyways, commissions were killing me, and when I looked at last year's trading, I'm not a super big trader or a super small trader. I'm sort of in between. And to give you an idea of how much I trade, I trade probably, I'd say about 50 options contracts a day. And it's usually small lots, like, I don't know, 5 lots, 10 lots, even 1 lots at times. So TD Ameritrade's rates were, it was a certain amount per trade plus a certain amount per contract. So if I was trading a 5 lot, or let's say I was trading a 1 lot, and let's look at some options here for a second. So let me put myself down smaller here. Okay, so if I was trading a 1 lot, let's look at UVXY here just real quick. It's like every strike in the world. But anyway, if I was trading a, let's say I was selling Jan 11 calls right here, the market's 10 bid at 19 cents. The market's really wide here because we're closed, but if I were to sell those, a 1 lot, now it's going to show me the commissions of, okay, $5.60 to sell 1 contract. So $5.60 to sell 1 contract. That's a lot. Now, if you're selling 100 contracts, it might be more reasonable per contract. So let's try 100 contracts. Okay, $70 to sell 100 contracts. Which, it sounds more reasonable in a way. Per contract, it's less than $1 a contract. But it's still, but I wasn't usually trading 100 lots. I was trading 1 lots, and so I was getting nickel and dime, nickel and dime, nickel and dimed all year. And you know, if you're doing like little stuff close to expiration, where you're trying to sell something for 10 cents and buy it back for 5, that sort of thing, if you have to pay $5 or $6 to trade a 1 lot, then that means that, you know, you need to make 10 cents, 10 or 11 cents in options premium just to break even. And so it took me out of contention for a lot of these small trades. Now, the other thing about TD Ameritrade that was a problem for me was that they were attaching on extra margin restrictions for me as a person who is naked short calls. So I was selling calls in UVXY, which is a VIX product, and you know, the fear with TD Ameritrade was, okay, if the market crashes or something, I'm going to lose more money than is in my account, and they're going to have to make up the difference. And I understand that. What I don't understand is them outlining for me a certain restriction, and then later on, once I have a position on, tightening those restrictions and forcing me to cover at a terrible price. So, you know, if you're a brokerage, figure out what you want the requirements for people to, for traders to be, and publish them. Let us know what they are, and then as a consumer, I can decide whether I like that or not. What actually happened was my margin requirement was X, and then weeks later, all of a sudden, it got to be a lot tighter. And they called me up and said, you have to cover your position in the next hour, or we're going to cover it for you. And I ended up losing money on the whole deal. So that was lame. So a lot of people have talked about negotiating terms, and that's a very valid thing. There's a guy on StockTwits, Trekker, who I was talking with over the last day or two, and he who's been able to negotiate really well for himself, and a lot of people have actually, and I actually took to negotiating with TD Ameritrade, and I've had varying amounts of success. Sometimes it's worked, and but the most recent time I tried to negotiate with them, they basically said, you know, we want you to deposit more money, and it just didn't work out. So I ended up switching my stuff to a different company called Tastyworks, and so the whole week I've been kind of waiting on Tastyworks to get set up with them, and their rates are a lot better. It's $1 per contract, per options contract, and then closing though is free. Now, when I quote these prices, there's always a little tack on of a couple pennies per transaction due to, like, I think it's like regulatory fees and whatnot. Now, any brokerage is going to have those little mini, like, tax type fees. So I don't even really discuss them because it's added onto whatever brokerage you use. When I say that you need to decide what brokerage you want to use based on how you're trading, that's what I mean is it really varies by what you're doing. If you're just trading stock and you're only making you know, 1 or 2 trades a week, then which brokerage you have, you might as well get the one with the best customer service and the one you feel most comfortable with and the best, I don't know, charts and whatnot. And because in the long run, what you're paying for those few trades isn't going to have a huge bearing on your bottom line. So my plan though now is I switched my stuff to Tastyworks, and then what I'm going to do is basically switch it to Tastyworks, and what I can do is I can use TD Ameritrade to model stuff, and then I can go and actually execute with Tastyworks. So that was kind of my plan as far as Tastyworks goes. Tastyworks, I'm going to pull up Tastyworks for you. It's a bit more confusing of a setup until you get used to it. But let's pull that in here. Let's see. So let me make this bigger here. So here's a Tastyworks setup. Like I said, it's a bit more confusing until you get used to it. But it doesn't really matter because all I'm really doing is executing on here. So there's a couple different ways to execute. This is a very interesting, this is what they call their curve display. Now I really like the philosophy of the guys behind Tastyworks. And so let's see, if I select an option here, I can go over to the right and basically execute a trade. So let's say if I wanted to sell, I probably want to sell some March out of the money calls. So let's pick March 16 calls. Click sell. So it has this old Jan trade which I don't want on. So let's see. Delete leg. So March 16 calls at 77 cents. I want to sell 1. Alright, so it's going to tell me how much my buying power is reduced by. And the basic details of my trade, which is great. So I think this will be fine for execution. And then I can go back to my if I want, I can go back to TD Ameritrade and use TD Ameritrade to model the trade. So let's take a look at how to do that here for a second. So let's go to back to TD Ameritrade here, and if I want to model something on TD Ameritrade, I can go to Analyze here, and then I can put what trade I want to do in. So we were talking about selling UVXY March 16 call, so let's go down here to March 16 calls. Sorry, those are weekly, sorry. March 16 calls. And here again, once the market, there are 77 bid. So if I click on to sell those, down the screen below here, it's going to have a theoretical position. If I pull this up, let's delete these other theoretical trades. And I can model, let's say if I sell 10 of these calls, I can model what that will do to my position. So if I pull up slices here, okay, so if I sold 10 of these calls, my Greeks, I'd be short 300 deltas, collecting $17 a day in theta. Now I have this set for what would happen for an 85% up move. So my risk for 85% up move if I sell 10 of these calls is I could lose $3,700. Okay, so, and I can do things like I can move it ahead a week. Okay, so in a week, if nothing happens, yeah, I'm sorry, if nothing happens. If everything stays the same, basically, but just we move forward a week, how do my Greeks change? How does my P&L change, et cetera, et cetera. So this is great modeling stuff. And then I can just use Tastyworks to execute. Now, do I feel bad about using TD Ameritrade just to model stuff and not putting business their way? Well, a little bit. But I've tried to negotiate with them. And it just hasn't worked out so far. So let's see, how can I get back over here? All right, so let's go like this. Video capture device. There, okay, so I'm back. So that's just a little insight into some thoughts about brokerage for me. The other thing I want to talk about with you is just the marijuana stocks. You know, it's really hard to do videos on these particular stocks because YouTube immediately demonetizes anything with the M word in it. So, not that I make money off my YouTube channel, but you know, you'd like to sort of move towards possibly making money off it, or at least have it help defray the costs of making videos and stuff like that. And when they immediately demonetize anything to do with a video's topic, it kind of makes you not that interested in having that as a topic of a video. But right now I'm so small, it really doesn't matter. So let's discuss the MJ stocks. We've seen huge up moves on a bunch of them. So let's go back and let me take you back to some charts here real quick. The big ones that I've been trading, APH, QF, so let's pull up a chart on this one. So if we back things up, let's take a look at 20 days here. Okay, so this is like the story of a lot of these charts is that, let's take a look here and make sure that I'm not blocking. I am sort of blocking the whole thing. Let me make myself smaller here. Alright, I'll make myself real small, put myself over in the corner here somewhere so you can see the chart. There we go. Alright, so this is kind of the story with a lot of these guys right now is they ripped up, sort of went parabolic, and then they've come way back down. So let's take a look at another one. This is Canopy Growth. Now Canopy Growth is of note for one reason is that they've kept completely away from investing in any American companies, and so this should be a stock where when Jeff Sessions comes out and says stuff about the U.S. industry, that people might, you know, get out of U.S. anything with U.S. exposure and put their money into this one. And as you can see in the last, this is just 20 days, and look at the huge move it's made. Let's go back a year. That even illustrates it further. Okay, so it just went, I guess, parabolic, as they love to say, and ripped way up, and now it's sort of coming back down. Now, where's the support? Like, I'm not a big technical analysis guy, but if you just look at this chart, it looks like around $16, $15 is where it could potentially go to. I did have this chart guy Dan on a few weeks ago, and he said, you know, marijuana stocks will make many millionaires in the next year. And when you think about that comment, you think, well, maybe I don't want to wait till it gets to 16 to re-up on this one. Now, what I did was I got on board these, like this one I got on board around like 22, and I wrote it to like maybe, I don't know, 32 or something. I got really lucky with these. I'm not a great stock scalper, but I did really well on these. Let's look at another one here. ACB, you know, they all look the same. Huge rip up and then back down. CMMDF. Now this was the stock that ACB was trying to, I'm not sure where they are in the deal, but it's in play from ACB right now. Let's look at the other one that I got heard on last week. Okay, so this is INSY. This stock does cannabinoid. I'm sure if I'm saying that right, but it does like cancer medication stuff. And you see this dip down to 4 there. That's when the CEO was taken away in handcuffs because they were inappropriately marketing this fentanyl. It's like a spray fentanyl drug to physicians. And but this just made a huge move. You can see I was able to participate in this move. I bought some calls when it was around 6 and sold them when it was 8. But then I got crushed. I did buy this one at the high around 13 something and wrote it down a couple bucks. So that was brutal for me. But you can see a lot of these have just the same graphs. Let's go back to Afria. This is one of my favorites. And the question is where do you reestablish some sort of long here? It looks like for this one maybe around 11, but it's hard to say. Some guy on StockTwits was saying to me, oh, you have to look at the Bollinger Band, this or that. And I just think that any sort of technical analysis is just as much of a guess as anything else. I'm sure people don't agree with me on that one, but that's just the way I feel about it. And while we're at charts, let's just go back to UVXY for one more sec. Just nice continuing down move. That's I believe that is let's see how many days that is. Half a year, I believe. Let's look at the year. Okay, so there's a year chart. So this is the story of UVXY all the time. Let's take a look at VMIN for a second. Now this down move in VMIN right here is actually deceptive. That's actually just the dividend coming out. So you know, it did open here, but you were given a $10 and change dividend, so that's not actually real right there. So anyway, so that's where we stand right now. I appreciate your patience in this first live stream for me. I'm just getting the hang of it. It is kind of fun. It is kind of cool to see somebody have to kind of think on their feet, and you can't really edit away mistakes and whatnot, so that's kind of interesting. But anyways, feel free to reach out to me online. I've got some great new interviews coming out and some people you've already seen, and I always love to hear from everybody. And happy trading next week. Obviously we have Monday off, but my account is finally funded in Tastyworks, and so I'm looking forward to Tuesday morning to start putting on some positions again. So find me in the StockTwits and talk to me. And thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.